66 million years ago, two forces collided. Only one world survived. The Primordials. They came at night. By dawn, they were already here, not passing through, not curious, here. And for the first time in the long memory of this world, something had arrived that did not belong to it. The northern plains had never seen anything like it. Three structures, if they could be called that, rested on the earth where nothing had rested before. They made no sound. They produced no smoke, no heat, no smell. In a world defined by noise and heat and the constant presence of living things, these objects were something far more unsettling. They were silent, and the silence around them was spreading. The patrol had been moving north when the smell changed. Not a predator, not fire, not anything they had a name for. Something that had no scent at all, which, in a world where everything carried a scent, was perhaps the most frightening thing possible. They stopped at the tree line and looked at what was resting in their plains. Not one of them spoke, not one moved forward. They had faced everything this world could produce. This was not from this world. They emerged without ceremony. Three figures in sealed suits that reflected nothing and absorbed everything. They carried instruments that swept the air, the ground, the tree line, cataloging, measuring, recording. They did not look at the jungle with wonder. They looked at it the way a traveler looks at a map, noting what is there, not what it means. This was not exploration. This was assessment. Soren had been watching since before dawn. He had closed the distance carefully, silently, the way he did everything. He watched the figures move below and did what he always did before acting. He waited, he observed, he understood. What he understood did not comfort him. These beings moved like they had done this 1,000 times, because they had. Dravon had followed Soren's trail north before the sun was fully up. He said nothing when he arrived. He looked at what was below. The red markings along his spine shifted, not with power, not yet, but with something older than power. Recognition. Not of what these things were, but of what they meant. How many? He said. 3 ships, Soren replied. So far. One of the figures turned toward the tree line. The light swept slowly across the jungle edge, across the ridge where Saurin and Draven were watching. It passed over them. Stopped, moved on. Dravon felt every muscle tighten. They saw us, he said. They recorded us, Soren corrected. There was a difference. And it was worse. To be seen as a threat meant you were taken seriously. To be recorded as fauna meant you were not. To the south, 2 more had come in over the amber sea, moving low, silent. Their shapes reflected in the golden water below, shapes that had no right to be, reflected in a sea that had existed for millions of years before anything capable of building them had evolved anywhere. The sea did not know what to make of them. Neither did anyone else. At the ashen peaks, Eldros felt what no instrument could measure, and the earth itself was confused. In all its long memory, in all the millions of years it had absorbed into its stone and water and soil, it had never felt anything like what was now resting on its northern plains. The planet knew every living thing that touched it. These things it could not read. They were outside everything it knew. And the earth, through Eldros, communicated this in the only way it could, with a silence deeper than any silence before. A second patrol arrived at the tree line by midday. Larger, different kinds. The young ones had never been taught to be afraid of anything on this earth. They were learning something new. One moved forward. Instinct, curiosity, the inability to believe what the eyes were seeing. It was pulled back, because the ones who had lived longer understood something the young ones did not yet. There are things you do not approach until you understand them, and there are things you may never understand. Soren withdrew before the sun reached its peak. He had seen enough. Dravon followed without speaking, which was unusual. Dravon always spoke. The silence meant he understood too. When Soren finally turned, his amber eyes were settled, decided. "We call the council," he said. "And then?" Dravon asked. Soren looked back toward the north, toward the cold light still visible above the tree line. "Then we decide what we are." That night, the sky told them what the day had only suggested. More lights, many more. Moving with the same deliberate coordination, the same terrible patience. Some descended. Some held their positions above, watching from a height that the tallest creature on Earth could not reach. Soren counted them from his cliff. He stopped counting when the number stopped mattering. This was not curiosity. This was not exploration. This was arrival. That night, Eldros spoke for the first time since the lights had appeared. He did not speak to Saurin. He did not speak to Draven. He spoke to the ground beneath him, as he always had. As the ground had always listened, he said, "I know what they are. I have felt this before. Not here, not in my own memory, but in the memory of the stone beneath my feet. They have done this before, to others, and those others are gone." The world had survived everything. Fire, ice, darkness, time itself. It had never had to survive something that chose it. Episode 3, The Survey.